You've just discovered something that could change your spiritual life forever. There's a saint, a holy man, who revealed 7 habits, 7 seemingly harmless behaviors that are driving the angels from your home right this very moment. Saint Maximilian Kolbe wasn't an ordinary man. He spoke with angels, he saw the invisible, and before giving his life at Auschwitz, he left a warning most people have never heard. If you feel your prayers go unanswered, if you feel spiritually alone, if peace has abandoned your home, perhaps you are practicing one of these 7 habits without realizing it. And I need to tell you something. By the end of this revelation, you'll understand why your home might have become a place angels avoid, but you'll also discover how to transform it back into a sanctuary, because there's a difference between an ordinary house and a home protected by angels. And that difference isn't what you imagine. St. Maximilian Kolbe discovered this in 1941, during one of humanity's darkest hours, when evil seemed to have triumphed. It was precisely then that he received a vision about how certain human attitudes create an invisible barrier, a barrier that prevents angelic presence. Have you ever noticed how some homes have a different energy? How you enter and feel peace immediately, while other houses, even beautiful ones, cause unease. Kolbe discovered this is no coincidence. It's not a matter of decoration or architecture. It's about the spiritual habits of the inhabitants, habits that either attract or repel the presence of angels. And here's the part that will shock you. Most of these habits seem normal, even virtuous, but they carry a subtle energy that angels cannot tolerate. Imagine for a moment. Angels are beings of pure light. They vibrate at a specific frequency, a frequency of love, peace, and purity. When our habits generate opposing frequencies, we create a dissonance that drives them away. It's like trying to tune a radio. If you're not on the right frequency, you only hear static. Kolbe first observed this in his own religious community. Some brothers seemed always protected, others constantly lived in spiritual struggles. The difference wasn't in the intensity of their prayers, nor in the number of hours of worship. The difference was in the small habits, in the details no one noticed. The first habit that drives angels away is something we do many times a day, something so common you probably did this morning, and will do again before you sleep. But before I reveal what it is, I need you to understand something. Kolbe didn't discover this by reading books. He discovered it by living an experience that changed everything. It was a cold December night. Kolbe was praying alone in the chapel. Suddenly he felt a presence, not a human presence, something different, something luminous. He opened his eyes and saw an angel standing before the altar. But the angel wasn't looking at him. It was looking at the door, as if waiting for something or someone. Kolbe remained motionless, observing. Then he understood. The angel was waiting for another brother who used to pray at that time, but this brother didn't show up, and after a few minutes, the angel simply disappeared. The next day, Kolbe discovered that the brother had spent the whole night complaining about the food, the cold, the difficulties of religious life. He had chosen to nurture dissatisfaction instead of seeking divine presence. That's when Kolbe understood the first spiritual law. Angels cannot remain where there is constant murmuring, where there is habitual complaining. Do you realize what this means for your life? How many times a day do you complain? About traffic, the weather, work, family, the state of the country. Each complaint is like spiritual noise that interferes with angelic attunement. But pay attention, I'm not talking about never expressing a difficulty or denying real problems. I'm talking about the habit of complaining, the tendency to see first what is wrong, to focus on what's missing instead of what exists. Angels vibrate with gratitude. When our home is constantly filled with murmuring and dissatisfaction, they simply cannot dwell there. Kolbe tested this. For a month, he observed two groups of brothers. One group that had the habit of complaining, another that practiced gratitude even in difficulties. The difference was remarkable. The group of murmurers constantly lived in conflicts, illnesses, minor accidents, seemingly inexplicable problems, while the grateful group experienced an inexplicable peace, a subtle but real protection. But the first habit is only the beginning. The second habit that drives angels away is even more subtle and more dangerous. It's a habit that many religious people practice thinking they are being virtuous, but in reality, they are creating a spiritual barrier. Kolbe discovered this through an experience that almost destroyed him spiritually. He had begun to judge other religious people, not openly, but in his thoughts. He saw the flaws of his brothers, analyzed their failures, mentally criticized their choices. He thought he was being spiritually discerning, that he was protecting the community from negative influences. But something strange began to happen. His prayers became dry. The divine presence he had always experienced began to withdraw. The visions ceased. Inner peace disappeared. Desperate, Kolbe sought guidance from his spiritual director and received a revelation that changed his understanding forever. Constant mental judgment creates an energy of separation, an energy that is the exact opposite of angelic energy. Angels live in unity, in acceptance, in unconditional love. When we habitually judge others, even in silence, we generate a frequency of division, a frequency that angels cannot tolerate. Have you ever noticed how some people seem to drain your energy? How after talking to them you feel exhausted? Often these are people who constantly live judging. Judgment is not only toxic to those who are judged, it's toxic to those who judge, and it creates a heavy spiritual atmosphere that drives away angelic presence. But here's what's most disturbing. Kolbe discovered that there are 5 other habits, 5 other seemingly harmless behaviors that have the same devastating effect. And the third habit is something you probably consider a virtue. It was 1940 when Kolbe made his most shocking discovery. He was observing a nun who seemed extremely dedicated. She prayed more than anyone else. She fasted constantly. She performed severe penances. But there was something strange. Despite all her outward devotion, she lived in constant anguish, never experiencing peace, never feeling the divine presence, and everyone around her felt restless in her presence. Kolbe decided to observe more closely, and he discovered something unsettling. She was trying to earn divine favor through sheer effort. She was turning spirituality into a performance, a competition with herself and others. But angels aren't drawn to effort. They are drawn to surrender, to humility, to simple, childlike trust. The third habit that drives angels away is spiritual perfectionism, the obsession with doing everything right, never failing, being impeccable in all religious practices. It seems virtuous, but it's actually disguised pride. It's an attempt to control God through behavior, and angels flee from pride like they flee from fire. Do you recognize this in your life? The constant pressure to be spiritually perfect, the anguish when you fail in some practice, the comparison with others who seem holier. This perfectionism generates a tension that is the opposite of angelic lightness. Angels dwell where there is trust, where there is acceptance of one's own humanity, where there is genuine humility. Kolbe learned this the hard way. After years of trying to be the perfect religious man, he had to learn to be simply human before God. And it was precisely when he stopped trying to impress heaven that heaven descended to him. But we're not finished yet. There are still 4 habits that may be operating in your home right now. And the 4th habit is perhaps the most common of all. It's something we do mostly at night, before going to sleep, and it's destroying the angelic protection over our family without us realizing it. Kolbe discovered this when he began to observe the timing of angelic manifestations. He noticed that certain homes were visited by angels regularly, others never were. The difference wasn't in the religiosity of the families, nor in the frequency of attending Mass. The difference was in what happened during the transitional moments, especially the moments between day and night. The fourth habit that drives angels away is habitual distraction during sacred moments. We live in an age of constant distraction. Cell phones, television, social media, news, endless entertainment, but angels dwell in silence, in quietude, in mindful attention to the present moment. When our home is constantly filled with noise, not just auditory but mental and spiritual, we create a turbulence that prevents the angelic presence. Have you ever noticed how difficult it is to truly pray when your mind is full of distractions? How difficult it is to feel the divine presence when you are constantly stimulated? Angels need a peaceful environment to manifest. They are like rare birds that only land in silent gardens. Kolbe realized that families who maintained sacred moments of silence, especially before meals and before bed, had a special protection. Different atmosphere. It wasn't fanaticism, it was practical spiritual wisdom. But here's something that will impact you. Kolbe discovered that there is a specific time when angels make their rounds through homes, a time when they check who is open to divine protection, and most people are doing exactly the wrong thing at that time. It's between 9 and 10 at night, the time when most families are preparing for bed. And it's precisely at this moment that we commit the fifth habit that drives angels away. At this hour, instead of connecting with the sacred, we connect with chaos. We watch violent news. We browse social media filled with negativity. We consume entertainment that feeds the worst aspects of human nature. And then we wonder why we have nightmares, why our sleep is restless, why we wake up tired even after sleeping 8 hours. Angels want to bless our rest. They want to protect our dreams. They want to fill our home with peace during the night, but they cannot operate where there is spiritual pollution, where the last thoughts of the day are about violence, fear, anger, or lust. Kolbe taught a simple practice that transformed the lives of thousands. In the last 30 minutes before bed, disconnect completely from the digital world. Pray briefly, forgive those who need to be forgiven. Give thanks for the day. Create a sacred space for the angels to operate during the night. But we haven't reached the most dangerous habits yet. The sixth and seventh habits are the ones that drive angels away the most, and you probably don't even imagine what they are. The sixth habit is something that happens mostly during the day, in our interactions with other people, and it's creating an invisible barrier that prevents not only the angelic presence, but also divine blessings. Kolbe discovered this by observing families who seemed cursed, families where everything went wrong, where problems piled up without apparent explanation. He noticed a pattern. These families had the habit of speaking ill of absent people, of spreading gossip, of fueling conflicts through words. But it wasn't just obvious slander. It was something more subtle. It was the tendency to always find something negative to say about others, to focus on flaws, to spread distrust. Angels are messengers of truth and love. They cannot dwell where there is falsehood, exaggeration, or the destruction of another's reputation. Every word we speak carries an energy. When we use our voice to destroy, instead of build, we create a toxic atmosphere that repels the angelic presence. Have you ever entered a home where people always speak ill of others? How do you feel? Restless, uncomfortable, with a desire to leave quickly. That's exactly how angels feel. They simply cannot stay. But there is a difference between necessary discernment and habitual gossip, between resolving conflicts maturely and fueling destructive gossip. Angels understand the difference, and they react accordingly. Kolbe tested this in his own community. When he implemented the rule of never speaking negatively of absent people, the atmosphere of the community changed completely. Problems that seemed impossible to solved themselves naturally. Peace settled in. And then we arrive at the seventh habit, the most dangerous of all. It's a habit that may seem completely harmless, even virtuous, but that creates such a strong barrier that it can take years to undo. Kolbe discovered this through his most traumatic experience, and it almost cost him his own salvation. It was 1941. Kolbe had been arrested by the Nazis. He was in Auschwitz concentration camp, surrounded by an evil that seemed to have definitively won. In that place of absolute horror, he made a discovery that changed his understanding of angelic presence forever. Even there, in the midst of hell on earth, some prisoners seemed protected, not physically. They all suffered equally, but spiritually. Some maintained inner peace, hope, human dignity. Others disintegrated quickly. They lost their faith, their sanity, their very souls. Kolbe observed carefully and discovered the most important pattern of his life. The seventh habit that drives angels away is despair disguised as realism. It's when we lose hope, but try to justify it as being realistic. It's when we stop believing in divine possibilities, but disguise it as spiritual maturity. Do you know people like that? Who always have a rational explanation for why nothing will work out, who can find problems in any solution, who live prepared for the worst. They think they're being prudent, but in reality, they're creating an atmosphere of spiritual death. Angels are beings of infinite hope. They vibrate at the frequency of possibility, of miracles, of transformation. When our home is impregnated with despair, even if it's a sophisticated and well-argued despair, angels simply can't operate. In Auschwitz, Kolbe saw this clearly. The prisoners who maintained hope against all human logic were the ones who received the most extraordinary graces, small daily miracles, unexplainable protections, supernatural strength. It wasn't naivete, it was profound spiritual wisdom, because hope is not the denial of reality. Hope is the affirmation of a greater reality, of a power that transcends circumstances. And when Kolbe finally understood this completely, something extraordinary happened. He offered to die in place of another prisoner. And in that moment of total sacrifice, he saw thousands of angels descending upon Auschwitz. He saw how his choice of hope and love had opened a door in heaven. He saw how a single act of faith can transform even the darkest place on earth. But now you know the 7 habits, and perhaps you're wondering how to reverse this, how to transform your home again into an angelic sanctuary. Kolbe left specific instructions, not abstract theories, concrete practices that work. The first thing you need to understand is that the angels are waiting. They want to return to your home. They want to protect your family. They want to bless your life. But they respect free will. They don't force their presence where they're not welcome. Each habit that drives angels away can be transformed into a habit that attracts them. Instead of constant complaining, practice active gratitude. Don't just thank when good things happen. Thank especially when things are difficult, and because that's where gratitude becomes an act of faith. Kolbe taught a simple practice. Upon waking, before even getting out of bed, thank for 3 specific things. They can be small. The air you breathe, the warm bed, the fact that you're alive. Do this for a week and observe how the atmosphere of your home begins to change. Instead of mental judgment, practice silent blessing. Every time you notice a flaw in someone, immediately bless that person mentally. Ask for divine protection for them. Send love instead of criticism. This doesn't mean being naive about people's real flaws. It means choosing to be a channel of grace instead of a channel of condemnation. Angels work through channels of grace. When you become one of those channels, they can operate through you. Instead of spiritual perfectionism, practice confident humility. Accept that you are human, that you will fail, that you need divine grace every moment. But accept this without despair, with the confidence of a child who knows they are loved even when they make mistakes. Angels are attracted to genuine humility, to honest vulnerability, to conscious dependence on God. Instead of constant distraction, create sacred moments of silence. It doesn't need to be a long time. 5 minutes in the morning, 5 minutes at night, 5 minutes before meals, moments where you simply stop, breathe, and open yourself to the divine presence. Angels inhabit silence. They speak through stillness. They manifest in peace. And here's something that can transform your life immediately. Kolbe discovered that there is a specific time when angels are most active. Between 3 and 4 in the morning. I'm not suggesting you wake up at that time, but if you naturally wake up, don't waste the moment. Pray briefly, bless your family. Ask for angelic protection for your home. It's only a few minutes, but it can make an extraordinary difference. Instead of nightly spiritual pollution, create a purification ritual before bed. Turn off all devices at least 30 minutes before sleep. Forgive those who need to be forgiven. Surrender your worries to God, and then invite the angels to protect your home during the night. Invite them explicitly, with simple but sincere words. Instead of gossip, practice protecting the reputation of others. Every time someone starts speaking ill of an absent person, gently change the subject, or find something positive to say about that person. This doesn't mean being false, it means choosing to build instead of destroy. And finally, instead of despair disguised as realism, practice active hope. Even when everything seems impossible, choose to believe in divine possibilities, not as an escape from reality, as an opening to a greater reality. But here's the most important part. Kolbe discovered that there is a specific prayer that transforms any home into an angelic sanctuary. It's not a long or complicated prayer. It's surprisingly simple, but it has extraordinary power. It's only 7 words. 7 words that Saint Maximilian Kolbe prayed every day, and that you can start praying today. Angels of God, dwell in this house. That's all. But it must be said with genuine faith, with real openness, with the sincere desire to transform your home into a sacred place. Pray this prayer every day for a week, and observe what happens. You'll notice subtle changes at first. A greater peace, fewer family conflicts, protection against minor accidents, more restful sleep. After a month, the changes will become more evident. Problems that seemed impossible will begin to resolve. Unexpected opportunities will appear. Relationships will heal. After a year, your home will be completely transformed. It will be a place where people feel at peace, where problems are solved with wisdom, where love prevails over fear. But you need to understand something crucial. This isn't magic. It's authentic spirituality. Angels aren't genie in a bottle wish granters. They are servants of God, working for the greater good of every person. Sometimes, angelic protection means you don't get that job you wanted, because God has something better prepared. Sometimes it means you go through a difficulty, because that difficulty will strengthen you in a necessary way. Angels see the complete picture of your life. They work for your eternal good, not just your temporary comfort. Kolbe learned this in Auschwitz. Even in extreme suffering, he could see God's hand at work. He could see how even that terrible experience was being used for a higher purpose. His death saved one life. But more than that, his example of faith has saved thousands of souls throughout history. And here's something that could completely change your perspective. Kolbe revealed that every home protected by angels becomes a point of spiritual light in the community. Not only is your family blessed, The entire neighborhood receives a positive influence. The whole city benefits. When you transform your home into an angelic sanctuary, you are participating in the transformation of the world. Every act of gratitude in your home sends waves of positivity beyond your walls. Every moment of sacred silence contributes to world peace. Every word of blessing strengthens the spiritual network that protects humanity. You're not just taking care of your family, you're serving the divine plan for the restoration of the world. Kolbe saw this clearly. He knew that every saint, every person who lives in union with the angels, becomes a collaborator in the work of universal salvation. Your home can be one of those points of light. Your family can be one of those collaborators. But it all starts with a choice. The choice to stop driving the angels away and start attracting them. The choice to transform destructive habits into constructive habits. The choice to believe that your life, your home, your family can be extraordinary. Because here is the ultimate truth that Kolbe discovered, the truth he took with him to his death. There are no ordinary people. There are no ordinary homes. There are no ordinary lives. There are only people who have discovered their sacred potential, and people who haven't yet. There are only homes that have become sanctuaries, and homes that haven't yet. There are only lives that are lived in partnership with the angels, and lives that aren't yet. The difference isn't in talent. It's not in wealth. It's not in education. The difference is in consciousness, in choice, in openness to the sacred. And now you know exactly what needs to be done. You know the 7 habits that drive angels away. You know the 7 practices that attract them. You know the prayer that transforms any home into a sanctuary. All that remains is to begin. Start today. Start now. Start with a simple angels of God dwell in this home, and prepare to discover what it's like to live in partnership with heaven. Because Saint Maximilian Kolbe didn't just die to save one life. He died to teach us how to live a life worthy of being saved. And your home is waiting to become the sanctuary it was always destined to be.